The Door Lectures on Mental Science. By Thomas Troward. Lecture 3. The New Thought and the New Order. Part 2 of 2. In themselves, this order and this method of thinking are not new. They are older than the foundation of the world, for they are those of the creative spirit itself, and all through the ages this teaching has been handed down under various forms, the true meaning of which has been perceived only by a few in each generation. But as the light breaks in upon any individual, it is a new light to him, and so to each one in succession it becomes the new thought. And when anyone reaches it, he finds himself in a new order. He continues indeed to be included in the universal order of the cosmos, but in a perfectly different way to what he had previously supposed, for, from his new standpoint, he finds that he is included, not so much as a part of the general effect, but as a part of the general cause, and when he perceives this he then sees that the method of his further advance must be by letting the general cause flow more and more freely into his own specific center, and he therefore seeks to provide thought conditions which will enable him to do so. Then, still employing the scientific method of following up the affirmative factor, he realizes that this universal causative power, by whatever name he may call it, manifests as supreme intelligence in the adaptation of means to ends. It does so in the mechanism of the planet, in the production of supply for the support of physical life, and in the maintenance of the race as a whole. True, the investigator is met at every turn with individual failure, but his answer to this is that there is no cosmic failure, and that the apparent individual failure is itself a part of the cosmic process, and will diminish in proportion as the individual attains to the recognition of the moving principle of that process, and provides the necessary conditions to enable it to take a new starting point in his own individuality. Now, one of these conditions is to recognize it as intelligence, and to remember that when working through our own mentality it in no way changes its essential nature, just as electricity loses none of its essential qualities in passing through the special apparatus which enables it to manifest as light. When we see this, our line of thought will run something as follows: my mind is a center of divine operation. The divine operation is always for expansion and fuller expression, and this means the production of something beyond what has gone before, something entirely new, not included in past experience, though proceeding out of it by an orderly sequence of growth. Therefore, since the divine cannot change its inherent nature, it must operate in the same manner in me. Consequently, in my own special world, of which I am the center, it will move forward to produce new conditions, always in advance of any that have gone before. This is a legitimate line of argument, from the premises established in the recognition of the relation between the individual and the universal mind, and it results in our looking to the divine mind, not only as creative, but also as directive, that is, as determining the actual forms which the conditions for its manifestation will take in our own particular world, as well as supplying the energy for their production. We miss the point of the relation between the individual and the universal, if we do not see that the originating spirit is a forming power. It is the forming power throughout nature, and if we would specialize it, we must learn to trust its formative quality when operating from its new starting point in ourselves. But the question naturally arises, if this is so, what part is taken by the individual? Our part is to provide a concrete center round which the divine energies can play. In the generic order of being, we exercise upon it a force of attraction in accordance with the innate pattern of our particular individuality, and as we begin to realize the law of this relation, we, in our turn, are attracted towards the divine along the lines of least resistance, that is, on those lines which are most natural to our special bent of mind. In this way we throw out certain aspirations with the result that we intensify our attraction of the divine forces in a certain specific manner, and they then begin to act both through us and around us in accordance with our aspirations. This is the rationale of the reciprocal action between the universal mind and the individual mind, and this shows us that our desires should not be directed so much to the acquisition of particular things as to the reproduction in ourselves of particular phases of the spirit's activity, and this, being in its very nature creative, is bound to externalize as corresponding things and circumstances. Then, when these external facts appear in the circle of our objective life, we must work upon them from the objective standpoint. This is where many fall short of completed work. They realize the subjective or creative process, but do not see that it must be followed by an objective or constructive process, and consequently they are unpractical dreamers and never reach the stage of completed work. The creative process brings the materials and conditions for the work to our hands, then we must make use of them with diligence and common sense. God will provide the food, but He will not cook the dinner. This, then, is the part taken by the individual, and it is thus that he becomes a distributing center of the divine energy, neither on the one hand trying to lead it like a blind force, nor on the other being himself under a blind unreasoning impulsion from it. He receives guidance because he seeks guidance, and he both seeks and receives according to a law which he is able to recognize, so that he no more sacrifices his liberty or dwarfs his powers, than does an engineer who submits to the generic laws of electricity, in order to apply them to some specific purpose. The more intimate his knowledge of this law of reciprocity becomes, the more he finds that it leads on to liberty, on the same principle by which we find in physical science that nature obeys us precisely in the same degree to which we first obey nature. As the esoteric maxim has it, what is a truth on one plane is a truth on all. But the key to this enfranchisement of body, mind, and circumstances is in that new thought which becomes creative of new conditions, because it realizes the true order of the creative process. Therefore it is that, if we would bring a new order of life, light, and liberty into our lives, we must commence by bringing a new order into our thought, and find in ourselves the starting point of a new creative series, not by the force of personal will, but by union with the Divine Spirit, which in the expression of its inherent love and beauty, makes all things new. Lecture 3. The New Thought and the New Order. End of lecture. Need help understanding Troward's teachings? The Thomas Troward lectures contain very deep and powerful information, but to get the most out of them, require repeated listening and in-depth study. Troward had only one personal student, Genevieve Behrend, and her book Your Invisible Power distills the essence of Troward's lectures in a concise and easy-to-understand format. For many, this is a much preferred way to learn Troward's teachings. Click the link below this video to visit yourinvisiblepower.us and learn more about Genevieve Behrend's recently updated book.
Click the link in the description below for a chance to win 10 classic best-selling Law of Attraction books